Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Niccolò Machiavelli understood one of the enduring truths of human behavior. Perception shapes power more than reality ever will. In politics, business, and personal life, the image you project often determines how people treat you long before they understand your true character. To appear virtuous is to wield influence without revealing intent. To act strategic is to preserve control without exposing vulnerability. When these two forces align, a person becomes untouchable, capable of moving through the world with a carefully constructed blend of charm and calculation. To appear virtuous means embodying traits that others respect and admire. Honesty, kindness, loyalty, generosity. These qualities are universally praised because they create comfort and trust. People are drawn to those who appear morally consistent, and they are quick to follow those who seem selfless or noble. But Machiavelli warns that genuine virtue is rarely rewarded in the ruthless game of power. The truly successful learn to use the appearance of virtue as a weapon. They understand that society is not built on truth but on shared illusions. Appear generous, and others lower their guard. Appear loyal, and people invest in your trust. Appear honest, and your words gain more weight, even when they serve your own interests. Machiavelli's genius lies in his detachment from moral sentiment. He does not condemn deception. He treats it as a tool. In his view, the world does not punish those who lie. It punishes those who lie badly. Those who can maintain a consistent, believable mask control the perception of others, and perception controls outcomes. This does not mean that one must always deceive or manipulate. It means that one must understand when truth serves power and when illusion protects it. The difference between the naive and the powerful is not ethics, but timing. The art of appearing virtuous while acting strategic requires emotional intelligence, discipline, and restraint. It demands a mastery over impulse, the ability to suppress raw emotion in favor of long-term advantage. Machiavelli would argue that the person who acts purely from sincerity exposes themselves to manipulation. Sincerity is admirable, but transparency is dangerous. The more people know about your intentions, the easier you are to control. When you hide your motives behind a veil of goodness, you maintain freedom of movement. Your enemies cannot strike what they cannot see. In modern terms, this principle is visible everywhere. In corporate leadership, as successful executives often present themselves as ethical visionaries, while quietly making decisions based on profit, competition, and survival. In politics, leaders wrap self-interest in the language of justice or national pride. In social life, individuals curate their image through digital platforms, displaying selective honesty to create desirable perceptions. What Machiavelli described centuries ago as princely behavior has evolved into a universal human skill: reputation management. But appearing virtuous is only half of the equation. To act strategic is to understand the mechanics of power itself. A person who hides behind virtue without strategy becomes a harmless idealist. Strategy gives direction to appearance. It determines when to reveal, when to conceal, and when to strike. A strategic mind studies people the way a chess player studies the board. Every interaction is a move, every reaction a clue. by observing others' desires and fears. The strategist learns how to influence decisions without force. Machiavelli saw this as the highest form of intelligence, guiding outcomes while maintaining the illusion of innocence. This duality, appearing virtuous while acting strategic, is uncomfortable for those raised to believe that honesty alone guarantees respect. Yet history repeatedly proves otherwise. Those who rely solely on moral integrity often fall victim to those who understand manipulation. The pure-hearted may win admiration, but rarely do they win power. The Machiavellian mind knows that morality, when detached from realism, becomes a liability. To survive in a world driven by ambition and self-interest, one must balance ethics with cunning. Machiavelli's insight is not a call to cruelty or deceit for its own sake. It is a recognition of human nature. People do not want raw truth. They want comforting illusions that align with their beliefs. The wise understand this and give the world what it expects to see, while quietly pursuing their own agenda beneath the surface. Appear noble to inspire trust, but act pragmatic to secure control. Appear compassionate to disarm critics, but act calculated to preserve power. The mask protects the mind, and the mind directs the mask. To embody this principle is to live with a certain detachment, to see relationships, politics, and systems as stages where perception dictates hierarchy. The powerful do not shout their ambitions, they cloak them in virtue. They are polite, patient, and persuasive, but beneath that calm exterior lies a precise and often ruthless strategic core. They know that moral appearances open doors that brute strength never could. When others see a saint, they are less likely to suspect the strategist behind the smile. Machiavelli's lesson, distilled to its essence, is that influence belongs to those who master both performance and perception. It is not enough to be good, nor enough to be cunning. The danger lies in being transparent, in allowing people to see what truly drives you. The world rewards image because image shapes emotion, and emotion governs decision. Appear virtuous, and others will align themselves with you. Act strategic, and you will ensure that alignment serves your purpose rather than theirs. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Among all of Machiavelli's teachings, none is more infamous or more misunderstood than this one. To modern ears, it sounds ruthless, even cruel. Yet beneath its harsh tone lies a principle of control that has shaped leaders, generals, and executives for centuries. Machiavelli never glorified fear for its own sake. He regarded it as a practical tool for maintaining order in a world governed by uncertainty, ambition, and betrayal. Love, he observed, is fragile. It depends on the goodwill of others, on emotion, and on the fleeting nature of affection. Fear, however, is steady. It binds people through consequence rather than sentiment, and therefore it offers a ruler or leader a more reliable form of loyalty. To understand what Machiavelli meant by control through fear, one must first understand human nature as he saw it. People, in his view, are driven by self-interest. They act kindly when it costs them nothing, and turn selfish when personal gain is threatened. Love fades when it becomes inconvenient. Fear endures because it appeals to self-preservation. A ruler who relies solely on love will eventually face disobedience when his subjects' interests shift. but a ruler who instills measured fear ensures obedience even when affection disappears. Machiavelli's realism is not moral cynicism. It is an acknowledgement that stability requires predictability, and predictability arises when people know the cost of defiance. However, the crucial element in this lesson lies in the distinction between fear and hatred. Fear maintains respect, hatred breeds rebellion. To control through fear effectively, one must never cross the line that turns discipline into cruelty. Hatred arises when people feel humiliated, exploited, or deprived of dignity. Fear, on the other hand, can coexist with admiration if it is rooted in competence and fairness. Machiavelli advised leaders to be firm, decisive, and even severe when necessary, but to avoid unnecessary violence or humiliation. A ruler should be feared for his authority, not despised for his malice. The moment people feel personally wronged, their obedience turns to vengeance. In a Machiavellian sense, fear is not an emotion to be spread recklessly. It is a controlled weapon to be used with precision. It is not terror that maintains power, but respect enforced through consequence. A wise leader enforces boundaries clearly and consistently, so that subordinates or citizens know exactly what behavior will bring punishment. This creates order. Random cruelty, on the other hand, destabilizes power because it makes people desperate. Desperation breeds conspiracies, and conspiracies destroy rulers. The secret, therefore, is not to terrorize but to command authority so effectively that disobedience appears dangerous while compliance feels safe. The psychology behind this principle applies not only to political power, but also to leadership in modern life. In corporations, households, or social structures, authority collapses when it depends entirely on goodwill. Leaders who crave to be loved often compromise their decisions to please others, and in doing so, they lose respect. Those who project firmness and hold others accountable are often criticized at first, but ultimately trusted more deeply. People may dislike a strict leader, yet they rely on them because boundaries provide security. Machiavelli's insight remains strikingly relevant. Affection inspires admiration, but fear commands reliability. Fear also reinforces hierarchy. In every group dynamic, someone must set the tone. The one who defines acceptable behavior, who decides what is tolerated and what is punished. When this power is vague or inconsistent, chaos follows. Machiavelli's prince maintains fear not through physical force, but through symbolic power, reputation, presence, and decisiveness. The leader who hesitates or appears uncertain invites challenge. The one who punishes swiftly, yet rationally, establishes an aura of inevitability around his authority. People obey not because they are constantly threatened, but because they know that consequences are real. To control through fear without becoming hated requires restraint and intelligence. It demands emotional distance, the capacity to act without passion, to punish without cruelty, and to enforce without pleasure. The leader must never appear vindictive. Justice, even when harsh, must seem impersonal, as though it arises from principle rather than ego. When a ruler punishes out of anger, it reveals weakness. When punishment comes calmly, with purpose, it conveys strength. Machiavelli believed that a prince should delegate acts of violence to others and reserve acts of mercy for himself. thereby appearing both powerful and benevolent. The ruler becomes feared for his reach, yet loved for his restraint. In the modern world, this principle manifests in subtle forms. A strong manager does not need to raise their voice to inspire obedience. Their expectations alone create pressure. A politician does not need to threaten openly. Their record of decisive action speaks for itself. In personal relationships, people often respect those who maintain boundaries more than those who seek constant approval. Fear, in this context, does not mean intimidation. It means reverence, the awareness that certain lines cannot be crossed without consequence. When used wisely, this form of fear builds long-term respect because it communicates strength, wrapped in fairness. Machiavelli's warning about hatred remains perhaps his most profound insight. He understood that people will tolerate authority, even harsh authority, if they believe it serves a greater purpose, but they will never tolerate humiliation. A ruler may tax heavily, enforce laws strictly, and even silence dissent. But if he avoids touching the dignity, property, or family of his subjects, they will adapt. Once he crosses those lines, his power begins to decay. Hatred corrodes from within. It turns the very structure of loyalty into the engine of destruction. Thus, the intelligent ruler allows people their pride, even under domination. He controls their behavior, not their identity. Control through fear, then, is less about domination than about balance. It is the recognition that love and fear cannot coexist in equal measure. And when a choice must be made, fear provides firmer ground. Love depends on emotion, but fear depends on logic, and logic endures when emotion fades. Machiavelli's ruler governs not the hearts of men, but their actions. By ensuring that disobedience carries consequence while obedience offers safety, he stabilizes his rule without descending into tyranny. Fear, used correctly, becomes not the instrument of oppression, but the foundation of order. Fortune favors the bold. This statement captures one of the most enduring truths in Machiavelli's philosophy, that power gravitates toward those who act decisively, while Ruthless philosophy. The Princes, Machiavelli praises leaders who move swiftly, take risks, and seize opportunity even when the outcome is uncertain. To him, fortune is a force that rewards courage and punishes timidity. Those who wait for the perfect moment are overtaken by those who create it. Boldness is not recklessness. It is the calculated willingness to act when others are still weighing options. It is the audacity to impose one's will upon circumstances rather than letting circumstances dictate one's fate. Machiavelli viewed life and politics as a battlefield shaped by unpredictability. He compared fortune to a river that floods unpredictably, destroying everything in its path. The wise, he said, prepare for such floods by building barriers. But they also understand that when opportunity arrives like a sudden current, it must be seized with strength, not hesitation. To Machiavelli, boldness is a form of preparation. It shows that a person is mentally armed for chaos. Those who are bold project an aura of confidence that itself becomes a source of power. People instinctively follow those who act as though they cannot fail, and they distrust those who appear uncertain. Boldness, therefore, is not merely an action. It is a performance that convinces others of inevitability. Throughout history, Machiavelli saw the rise and fall of leaders who embodied this principle. The ones who succeeded were those who dared to act in moments when others were paralyzed by fear. Cesare Borgia, one of Machiavelli's prime examples, demonstrated boldness in every political maneuver. His actions were ruthless and sometimes controversial, yet they commanded respect because they reflected purpose. Even when he failed, his decisiveness earned him admiration. Machiavelli believed that boldness, even when it leads to temporary setbacks, strengthens a ruler's image far more than cautious hesitation. Failure can be redeemed through persistence, but indecision leaves a stain that power never forgives. Boldness is also psychological warfare. The decisive individual projects dominance over both allies and rivals. When a leader acts boldly, they force others to react, shifting the balance of control. Every delay, every moment of uncertainty allows others to gain influence. In contrast, bold action keeps initiative firmly in the hands of the one who dares. This is why Machiavelli emphasizes that hesitation is the true enemy of success. Fearful minds seek security in endless analysis, while bold minds recognize that power is a game of momentum. The one who moves first sets the rules, the one who moves second plays by them. In modern terms, Machiavelli's lesson applies far beyond the realm of princes and kingdoms. In business, innovation often rewards those who take calculated risks, rather than those who wait for guarantees. In personal ambition, boldness manifests as the courage to speak when silence is safer, to pursue a goal when others doubt its feasibility, to make choices that defy comfort. The bold create opportunities because they refuse to be restrained by fear of failure. Even in relationships and social interactions, those who act with confidence often shape the dynamics around them. Power, in all its forms, naturally inclines toward movement, not caution. Machiavelli's praise of boldness also reveals his understanding of human psychology. People are drawn to strength because it creates certainty in uncertain times. A bold person gives the impression of control, and control is magnetic. When someone takes decisive action, others project competence onto them, even if the decision itself is risky. The illusion of power often becomes real because perception influences behavior. Machiavelli knew that fear and admiration are intertwined. Both stem from respect for forceful will. When boldness is coupled with intelligence, it becomes irresistible. It commands trust from followers and hesitation from opponents. Yet, Machiavelli's view of boldness is not without limits. He distinguishes between courage and recklessness. True boldness arises from calculation, not impulse. A reckless leader acts without foresight and collapses under the weight of consequences. A bold leader acts with awareness of risk, but refuses to let fear dictate timing. Machiavelli understood that fortune can be conquered only through assertive strategy, not blind aggression. Fortune, in his metaphor, is a woman. She yields to those who are daring, not those who plead with patience. To him, this meant that the world belongs to those who assert dominance over uncertainty, rather than those who beg it for mercy. The Machiavellian mind, if it lies as a hesitation, is a language of weakness. When others delay, they signal insecurity. Power responds to conviction, not deliberation. This is why bold people rise quickly. They fill the void left by indecision. When a situation demands leadership, the one who steps forward first becomes the focal point of trust and attention. Machiavelli observed that fortune, like people, despises the timid, even if a bold move leads to mistakes. The act of taking it creates the perception of control, and perception often outweighs reality in shaping destiny. The connection between boldness and respect also lies in the emotional response it provokes. Fear of failure restrains most people, but admiration for courage is universal. A bold person embodies what others secretly wish they had: freedom from hesitation. This psychological advantage multiplies influence. People follow not just the leader who is right, but the leader who is sure. Machiavelli understood that this sense of surety is what stabilizes power. The bold appear unstoppable because they act before resistance can organize. Their very movement disorients opposition, leaving rivals trapped in reaction. In the realm of politics, boldness serves another function: it creates destiny. The cautious ruler is shaped by events, while the bold ruler shapes events themselves. When a prince or leader hesitates, they allow external forces, luck, advisors, enemies, to steer their fate. When they act boldly, they seize control of narrative and direction. This is why Machiavelli repeatedly urged rulers to confront uncertainty head-on, even at the risk of failure. To him, a failed action could be repaired, a lost opportunity could not. The moment of decision defines the difference between the powerful and the powerless. Boldness, then, is both a philosophy and a weapon. It is the ability to turn fear into momentum and hesitation into opportunity. It is not the absence of caution, but the mastery of it. The art of acting in full awareness of danger, yet refusing to be ruled by it. Machiavelli's world was one of shifting loyalties, sudden wars, and fragile alliances. But his insight transcends time. Fortune bends toward those who dare to grasp it. The world does not remember those who waited. It remembers those who acted. Machiavelli's philosophy, often labeled as ruthless or manipulative, is in truth a study of realism, an unflinching exploration of how power truly operates beneath the surface of morality and appearances. Across his lessons, a consistent theme emerges: survival and success belong not to the most virtuous or idealistic, but to those who understand the psychology of control, the dynamics of fear, and the necessity of boldness. To appear virtuous while acting strategic, to command through measured fear rather than fragile love, and to seize opportunity with decisive boldness. These are not instructions for cruelty, but for mastery. They represent the mindset of those who refuse to be passive participants in the game of power. In a world still governed by perception, emotion, and competition, Machiavelli's insights remain timeless. He stripped away illusions to reveal that leadership is as much about performance as it is about principle. That influence depends more on how others perceive strength than on how one feels about morality. His lessons remind us that human nature changes little, even as societies evolve. Those who learn to balance image with intelligence, compassion with control, and caution with courage become not merely successful, they become untouchable. Machiavelli did not teach cruelty, he taught awareness. And awareness, when paired with bold action and strategic restraint, becomes the ultimate form of power.